When something inside the house needs maintenance, it's very nice to have a home repair kit. So the question is that $50 kit just as good as a kit that costs $130? Well, let's find out. We'll see which toolkit has the strongest wrenches. Then we'll compare the failure load for the handles on the hammers. Some of the sockets have great quality, but others really struggled. We'll also compare the sharpness of the utility knives. Then we'll compare the performance of screwdrivers and screwdriver bits. At a price of $52, the least expensive home tool set we'll be testing is made by SunPay. And a lot of tools within the SunPay kit are out of position. All the tools are contained within a carrying case. They claim it includes 281 pieces of high-quality tools. It's a pretty comprehensive kit, but it does not include clamps, locking pliers, scissors, hacksaw, or utility knife. The SunPay tool set is made in China. Weight is sometimes an indicator of quality, and the SunPay kit weighs 10.5 pounds. Since most of the home tool kits don't include a comprehensive set of wrenches, the adjustable wrench needs to be of good quality. And the SunPay's 8-inch adjustable wrench weighs almost 300 grams and has a pretty large jaw span at just over an inch. Let's use a highly precise torque wrench calibration tool to test the performance of the adjustable wrenches. The torque wrench tester will keep track of the peak torque. Let's use a very soft coupling nut, which should not cause any harm to the wrenches. I'll replace the coupling nuts between testing each of the wrenches. And there's a lot of slop with the SunPay wrench. And the SunPay gave up early at just under 55 foot-pounds of torque. And the super soft coupling nut actually caused damage to the SunPay wrench. At a price of $60 is this Get a Hand home tool kit. It's a 188-piece kit. It comes in a largemouth tool bag with 15 pockets. They claim that all their tools meet or exceed ANSI standards. The Get a Hand tool kit is made in China. And the Get a Hand kit weighs 11.12 pounds. And a 6-inch Get a Hand wrench is very small and light at only 138.95 grams or less than half the weight of the SunPay. It does have a pretty big mouth at 0.81 inches. Much better build quality than the SunPay. And 77.74 foot-pounds is pretty impressive for a 6-inch adjustable wrench. And the wrench actually held up quite a bit better than the SunPay. Also, the price of $60 is this 236-piece Fast Pro kit. Includes a 12-inch wide mouth open storage bag. They claim that their pliers are constructed with forged steel and heat treated for strength and durability. Socket and combination wrenches are made of chrome vanadium steel. And the Fast Pro kit is made in China. And it's 9.2 pounds for the Fast Pro. And the 8-inch Fast Pro weighs 263.59 grams and has a jaw opening at just over an inch. There's a lot less slop compared to the SunPay and about the same as the Get a Hand wrench. And 88.64 foot-pounds is the best yet. And the Fast Pro also held up better than the SunPay. At a price of $63 is this Eastvolt brand. Includes 218 pieces. They claim their toolkit includes professional grade tools. We're going to test that. And the Eastvolt toolkit is made in China. And the Eastvolt is the heaviest yet at 12.9 pounds. And the 8-inch Eastvolt weighs just over 270 grams and has a jaw spread of just over an inch. And the Eastvolt's build quality seems about the same as the Fast Pro. And the adjustable wrench performed the best yet at just over 92 foot-pounds. No visible damage to the Eastvolt. At a price of $65 is this Pittsburgh brand, which is sold at Harbor Freight. And with the help of FedEx, about half the tools are out of place. The toolkit includes 146 pieces. Includes a 3/8-inch ratchet, 33/8 and 1/4-inch drive sockets, 12 combination wrenches, 22 hex keys, and 81 miscellaneous tools. And it's 13.7 pounds for the Pittsburgh. And the Pittsburgh is the second heaviest yet at just over 278 grams and has a jaw spread of 0.94 inches. There's quite a bit of slop with the Pittsburgh. And the Pittsburgh threw in the towel early at only 63.38 foot-pounds. Unfortunately, the thumb screw experienced catastrophic damage and this wrench is now ruined. At a price of $70 is this Amazon Basics kit. Includes 173 pieces. And a few tools are out of position, but better than the Pittsburgh. Includes 8 combination wrenches, 3/8-inch ratchet wrench, 22 hex keys, 6-inch slip joint pliers, 6-inch long nose pliers, and a whole lot more. The Amazon Basics home tool kit is made in China. And the Amazon Basics kit weighs 11.2 pounds. Unfortunately, the Amazon Basics kit does not include an adjustable wrench. At a price of $90 is this Deco Pro kit. And most of the tools stayed in the proper location, definitely the best yet. It's a 218-piece general household hand tool kit. They claim their tools are forged from high-strength impact grade chrome vanadium steel. They also claim their tools meet or exceed ANSI critical standards. The Deco Pro is made in China. And the Deco Pro is the heaviest yet at just over 14 pounds. And the 8-inch Deco Pro weighs about the same as the Pittsburgh at 277.1 grams. 1.19 inches is also the largest span yet, but there's quite a bit of slop with this wrench. And 71.58 foot-pounds is about 20 foot-pounds less than the Eastvolt. And the Deco also experienced a small amount of damage to the lower jaw. Also at a price of $90 is this pink tool kit, which is made by Deco. Just like the Deco Pro, just about all the tools within the Deco Pink kit stayed in place. The Deco Pro toolkit had 218 pieces, the Pink tool has 238. It even comes with a 12-volt power cordless drill. The drill has a 1.5 amp-hour rechargeable lithium-ion battery, made in China. And it's 15.75 for the Deco Pink. And the Deco Pink weighs about 12 grams less than the Deco Pro and has a smaller jaw opening at 1.04 inches. And the jaw on the Deco Pink also has a lot of slop. And 86.38 foot-pounds is good enough to move into third place behind the Fast Pro. Just a small amount of damage to the lower jaw. At a price of $112 is this Craftsman kit. Only 2 tools are out of position with the Craftsman kit. The Craftsman toolkit doesn't have nearly as many tools as many of the other kits, but the Craftsman brand does have a pretty good reputation for quality. Includes a pretty nice blow-molded carrying case. The Craftsman tools do come with a lifetime warranty. And the Craftsman toolkit is made in China. And the Craftsman kit weighs 12.58 pounds. And the Craftsman kit's 6-inch adjustable wrench is pretty light at only 133.8 grams and has a jaw span of 0.94 inches. There's quite a bit of slop for a 6-inch wrench. And the Craftsman gave up pretty early at 56.35 foot-pounds. However, no visible damage to the Craftsman. At a price of $129 is this Cobalt Homeowner's Tool Set. Just a few tools are out of position with the Cobalt kit. Includes 268 pieces. The kit offers 1/4-inch and 3/8-inch drive metric and SAE shallow sockets and a 3/8-inch drive ratchet. And the Cobalt kit is just under 13 pounds. And the 6-inch Cobalt wrench is the lightest in the lineup at just over 130 grams and has the smallest jaw opening yet at 0.82 inches. The Cobalt has quite a bit of slop just like the Craftsman. And 52.65 foot-pounds is about 25 foot-pounds less than the 6-inch Get-A-Hand wrench. No visible damage to the Cobalt. So the Eastvolt came out on top at 92.05 foot-pounds. The Fast Pro also performed well at 88.64 foot-pounds and Pink Tool 86.38. All of the tool sets came with sockets. And the SunPay socket is pretty light at under 21 grams. So let's see if the socket can handle 200 foot-pounds of torque. I'll cut a piece off of this 1/2-inch Allen wrench which can withstand an incredible amount of torque. A vintage USA-made Craftsman socket will be holding a small piece of Allen wrench. And things did not go well for the SunPay with the socket experiencing a blowout at 136.3 foot-pounds. Definitely not the best durability and strength as advertised. And the Get-A-Hand also weighs less than 21 grams. And the Get-A-Hand gave up even sooner than the SunPay at very close to 90 foot-pounds. Now that's a lot of damage. And the Fast Pro looks a lot more promising at 26.48 grams. And the Fast Pro survived the 200 foot-pound load without a problem. And the Eastvolt appears to be on a serious diet at only 21.32 grams. And the Diet Eastvolt blew out at only 117.6 foot-pounds. Definitely not the best durability and strength as advertised. And the Harbor Freight Pittsburgh has plenty of mass at over 26 grams. Fortunately, the Pittsburgh easily handled the 200 foot-pounds of torque. And the Amazon Basics is pretty lean at just over 21 grams. And surprisingly, the Amazon Basics survived over 200 foot-pounds of torque. And the Deco Pro is pretty hefty at just over 30 grams. And the Deco Pro easily withstood well over 200 foot-pounds of torque. And the Pink Tool socket might just be in trouble at only 21.35 grams. And the Pink Tool socket just about made it, but it blew out at 193.6 foot-pounds. And that sudden blowout will definitely cause some busted knuckles for sure. And the Craftsman socket is pretty heavy at almost 30 grams. And the Craftsman has more than enough strength, and I ended the test way too late at 232 foot-pounds. And the Cobalt should have plenty of brawn at over 28 grams. And the Cobalt held up just fine at well over 200 foot-pounds of torque. So the Fast Pro, Pittsburgh, Amazon Basics, Deco Pro, Craftsman, and Cobalt all perform well at over 200 foot-pounds of torque. If you're buying a home tool kit, hammer quality is definitely a factor to consider. I compared hammer performance for vibration and wear from impacting nails. None of the hammers were so soft that they experienced damage from the nails. However, some of the hammers do transfer quite a bit of vibration. While ranking hammer performance is highly subjective, the Craftsman is the best and the Cobalt finished in a close second. The Pittsburgh finished in a distant third. Most of these are light-duty hammers, but let's compare the handle failure load. And the SunPay's handle broke at 113.5 foot-pounds. And the Get-A-Hand really struggled in this test, and the handle broke at only 89.5 foot-pounds. And the Fast Pro performed well for an 8-ounce hammer at 142.2 foot-pounds to move into the lead over the SunPay. And the Eastvolt really struggled in this test with the handle bending and then breaking at only 67.8 foot-pounds. And the Pittsburgh is larger than the other hammers, and it's the strongest hammer yet at 161.7 foot-pounds. And the Amazon Basics also performed well for an 8-ounce hammer with the handle breaking at 135 foot-pounds. And the Deco Pro is definitely not a pro when it comes to handle strength at only 80.6 foot-pounds. And the Pink Tool performed well for a compact hammer at 133.8 foot-pounds. And the 16-ounce Craftsman hammer appears to be well constructed and it moves into the lead at 242.3 foot-pounds. And the Cobalt is also a 16-ounce hammer, but the handle doesn't offer nearly as much strength as the Craftsman at only 203.3 foot-pounds. So the Craftsman offers the most handle strength at 242.3 foot-pounds. Cobalt finished in second at 203.3 and Pittsburgh 161.7 foot-pounds. And all of the tool sets do come with a 3/8" ratchet. So let's compare the working arc swing within a 30-degree space that's typically found in tight spaces. Within a 30-degree space, the Sunpay is only making 15 degrees of progress with each right-to-left pass. And the Sunpay is finally finished with a full rotation and a total of 24 right-to-left passes. Definitely not very efficient. And the get-a-hand ratchet seems to be making about the same amount of progress with each pass at 15 degrees. And the get-a-hand ratchet is finally finished in 24 right-to-left passes, the same as the Sunpay. And the Fast Pro's handle is narrower than the Sunpay and the get-a-hand, and that gave it a slight advantage. And the Fast Pro moves into the lead at 23.8 passes. And the Eastvolt has a much larger handle than the first three ratchets, and that's really getting in the way. And it's 24.4 passes for the Eastvolt. And the Pittsburgh has a pretty narrow handle, but the ratcheting mechanism is pretty sloppy. And the Harbor Freight Pittsburgh really struggled on the working arc swing test at 27 right-to-left passes. And the Amazon Basics has a pretty large handle, just like the get-a-hand. And just like the get-a-hand, the Amazon Basics also completed one full rotation and 24 passes. And the Deco's handle is also pretty large and inefficient. And the Deco is finally finished in 24.5 right-to-left swings. And the Deco Pink looks different than the Deco Pro, but it performed the same at 24 back and forth passes. And the handle on the Craftsman is a little bit smaller than those ratchets that have the rubber grips. And the smaller handle did help the Craftsman as it moves into the lead at 23.6 passes. And the Cobalt is a 90-tooth ratchet with a narrow handle. And for a home tool set, the Cobalt ratchet is very well designed and ran circles around the competition in only 18.8 passes. Very impressive. So the Cobalt finished in first place at 18.8 passes, and the Craftsman finished in a distant second at 23.6. And is a third place finish for the Fast Pro at 23.8. Let's compare the strength of the ratchets next. And the handle on the Sunpay is beginning to bend at only 130 foot-pounds. And the ratchet broke at 213.2 foot-pounds, which isn't too bad. The internal ratcheting mechanism is the failure point. And the get-a-hand has a much better build quality than the Sunpay, and it finally broke at 264.5 foot-pounds, which is pretty good. Unlike the Sunpay, the ratchet handle did not bend. The ratcheting mechanism held up just fine, but the drive broke. And the Fast Pro is also a pretty strong ratchet, finally breaking at 253.2 foot-pounds. Just like the get-a-hand, the drive broke, but the handle did not bend. And the Eastvolt looks a lot like the Sunpay, but the Eastvolt did give up a lot sooner at only 154.3 foot-pounds when the mechanism let go. And catastrophic failure occurred at 156.8 foot-pounds. And the Harbor Freight Pittsburgh ratchet has a solid drive, but it's constructed of very poor metal, and the drive broke at only 170.3 foot-pounds. And the Amazon Basics began bending at only 100 foot-pounds, but the ratcheting mechanism just broke at only 160.2 foot-pounds. Definitely a very light-duty tool. And the Deco marketing information claims that their tools meet or exceed critical ANSI standards, but the ratchet let go at 156 foot-pounds. A secondary impact inside the gearbox caused the torque to spike to 171.9 foot-pounds. Definitely a light-duty ratchet. And the Deco Pink's handle began bending at 115 foot-pounds, and the ratcheting gear set let go at 164.7 foot-pounds when the ratcheting mechanism completely failed. Unfortunately, the Craftsman ratchet quality is pretty disappointing at only 150 foot-pounds at the initial failure load. A secondary impact caused the torque to spike to 183.7 foot-pounds when the ratcheting mechanism completely failed. And the 90-tooth Cobalt is a much better ratchet overall than the competition, and it's also pretty strong, finally giving up at 245.6 foot-pounds. The 3/8" drive held up just fine, but the internal gear set let go. So the get-a-hand came out on top at 264.5 foot-pounds. Fast Pro finished in second place at 253.2 foot-pounds, and Cobalt 245.6. Let's compare the strength of the wrenches next. I'll once again use pieces of an Allen wrench, which is made of a much harder steel than these wrenches. And the Sunpay wrench gave up at just under 55 foot-pounds of torque. Unfortunately, the jaw on the wrench is stretched and experienced significant damage to the lower and upper jaw. While we're at it, let's go ahead and test the strength of the wrench. And the Sunpay wrench began bending at around 100 foot-pounds and reached a peak torque of 128.4. And the get-a-hand performed quite a bit better than the Sunpay at 72.25 foot-pounds. That's actually pretty good for a home tool set wrench. However, it is pretty soft metal, and the upper and lower jaw experienced pretty bad damage. And the closed-in side of the wrench held up and began bending at around 100 foot-pounds. I ended the test at just under 130 foot-pounds, and the wrench is badly bent. And the Fast Pro made it to just under 60 foot-pounds when the wrench gave up. The lower jaw experienced a pretty deep gouge, and the upper jaw is also badly damaged. And the closed-in side of the wrench held up, and the wrench is badly bent at 145.8 foot-pounds, the best yet. And the Eastvolt threw in the towel the quickest yet at only 47.15 foot-pounds. There's a pretty deep gouge in the lower jaw and a big dent in the upper jaw. And the closed-in side of the wrench held up and the wrench became badly bent at 139 foot-pounds. And the Harbor Freight Pittsburgh wrench broke into 2 pieces at 58.51 foot-pounds. I see why some people call it hazard freight, as that could cause a pretty serious eye injury. And the closed-in side of the wrench held up but became badly bent at 117.7 foot-pounds. And the Amazon Basics had all that it could take and gave up early at only 38.89 foot-pounds. Even with the low torque, there's a lot of damage to the lower and upper jaws of the wrench. The closed-in side of the wrench is a little bit stronger than the Pittsburgh at 131.8 foot-pounds when the wrench became badly bent. And the Deco Pro performed the best yet, finally letting go at just over 75 foot-pounds. And the lower jaw has a deep gouge and the upper jaw has a pretty large dent. And 119.3 foot-pounds, and the wrench is now badly bent. And the Deco Pink is definitely a very light-duty wrench with the lower jaw breaking at only 30 foot-pounds. 30 foot-pounds was not enough torque to cause damage to the upper jaw. And the wrench broke into 2 pieces at 114.1 foot-pounds. Definitely a very poor quality wrench built with very poor quality metal. We'll skip the Craftsman and the Cobalt since they do not come with wrenches. Wrench quality is a factor to consider, and the Deco Pro came out on top at just over 75 foot-pounds. Get a Hand finished in second place at 72.25 and Fast Pro 59.91 foot-pounds. Let's compare the quality of the Phillips No. 2 screwdrivers next. I'll be using a drill press with the wheel attached to the lever arms. With a 10-pound steel weight attached to the lever arms, there's about 70 pounds of downward force on the screwdrivers. I'll remove the belt on the drill press to prevent that from interfering with the test results. And the Sunpay screwdriver seems pretty light duty, and 70 pounds of downward force seems like all that it can handle. And the Sunpay cammed out at 80 inch-pounds. And the Sunpay screwdriver is pretty soft, and it was completely destroyed during the test. I'll replace the screw between testing each of the screwdrivers. And the Get a Hand screwdriver definitely seems better constructed than the Sunpay. And the Get a Hand cammed out at 89 inch-pounds and experienced catastrophic damage. And the Fast Pro performed just a little bit better than the Get a Hand at 83 inch-pounds. As the screwdriver began to cam out, the tip of the screwdriver sheared off during the test. And Eastvolt has been struggling on most of the tests in this review, but it performed very well on this one at 105 inch-pounds to move into the lead. Unfortunately, the screwdriver tip did shear off during the test. And the Pittsburgh Phillips No. 2 struggled on this test and experienced cam out at only 52 inch-pounds. The tip of the screwdriver did survive, but there's a lot of damage. And the Amazon Basics Phillips No. 2 is made of pretty soft metal, and the screwdriver gave up at only 56 inch-pounds. Unfortunately, the tip of the screwdriver has been destroyed. And the Deco Pro has been performing better than average on most of the tests, and it performed very well on this one at 78 inch-pounds. However, the tip of the screwdriver is completely mangled. And the Deco Pink looks quite a bit different than the Deco Pro, and the Pink performed better at 87 inch-pounds. And the flutes on the screwdriver began twisting, and the tip of the screwdriver sheared off. And the Craftsman moves into second place behind the Eastbolt at 100 inch-pounds. And the tip of the screwdriver broke off. And the Cobalt Phillips No. 2 looks like it began camming out just before the tip of the screwdriver finally broke off. And 86 inch-pounds is actually pretty good. So the Eastvolt came out on top at 105 inch-pounds. Craftsman finished in second place at 100 and Get a Hand 89 inch-pounds. Let's compare the performance of the T25 Starbits next. 120 inch-pounds is a pretty reasonable goal on this test, and the Sunpay performed a lot better than expected at 144 inch-pounds. And the Sunpay began twisting right before it sheared. And the Get a Hand has outperformed the Sunpay on most of the tests, but not this time at only 104 inch-pounds. And the Get a Hand is just way too brittle. And the Fast Pro T25 bit also performed very well, finally breaking at 144 inch-pounds, the same as the Sunpay. Just like the Sunpay, the bit twisted right before it sheared. And the Eastbolt kit has the strongest Phillips screwdriver, but the T25 gave up early at only 107 inch-pounds. And the T25 bit is just way too soft and experienced a pretty bad twist. And the Pittsburgh has struggled in most of the categories throughout the showdown, and has struggled on this one too at 104 inch-pounds. Unfortunately, the Pittsburgh bit is just way too soft. And the Deco Pro T25 bit outperformed the Pittsburgh bit, but not by much at only 108 inch-pounds. And the Deco Pro experienced some twisting right before it sheared. We'll skip the Amazon Basics since the kit does not come with a T25 bit. And the Deco Pink performed just a little bit better than the Deco Pro this time at 110 inch-pounds. A small amount of twist just before the bit broke. And the Craftsman performed better than most of the other brands at 121 inch-pounds to move into third place behind the Sunpay and the Fast Pro. A small amount of twisting and the bit sheared. And the Cobalt performed very well at 135 inch-pounds to take the third place position away from the Craftsman. And the damage to the Cobalt looks to be about the same as the Craftsman. So the Sunpay and the Fast Pro tied for first place at 144 inch-pounds. Cobalt finished in third place at 135. Let's go ahead and test the sharpness of the utility knives next using this Best Certified Sharpness Tester. A double-edged razor blade has a sharpness score between 50 and 75. We'll be testing utility blades, which should have a sharpness between 150 and 200. I'll replace the test clips between testing each of the utility blades, skipping the Sunpay since it didn't come with the utility knife. And the Get a Hand did a fantastic job with a sharpness score of 95. And the Fast Pro is also pretty sharp with a sharpness score of 145. And the Eastvolt is even sharper than the Fast Pro with a sharpness of 135. And the Amazon Basics just isn't very sharp for a utility knife blade at 215. And the Deco Pro also struggled in this test with a sharpness score of 225. And the Paint Tool outperformed the Deco Pro with a decent sharpness score of 170. And the Craftsman performed well with a sharpness score of 145, which is sharper than average. And the Cobalt performed even better and moves into second place with a sharpness score of 105. So the Get a Hand has the sharpest utility blade with a sharpness of 95. Cobalt finished in second place with a sharpness of 105, and Eastvolt 135. Only one of the toolkits has a drill. So let's see if the pink tool drill can drive in a 3 1/4 inch screw. About 3.5 seconds to drive in the screw, and the drill came to a stop at 26 inch-pounds. Let's see how far it gets with the lag bolt. And the pink tool didn't get far, but 26 inch-pounds once again. Not a bad drill, but definitely designed for very light duty. So which toolkit is the best? I've converted the raw data into a 1st through 10th place finish to make it easier to compare the performance. And the Cobalt has the best overall finish, a ranking of 3.1. The Craftsman finished in second place with an average of 3.5. The very affordable Fast Pro brand performed very well with an average of 3.7. These three are definitely good kits for light duty or occasional use around the home. Another factor to consider is the tool selection for each kit. This list is subject to human error, so please double check my work before making a purchase. The tool sets are organized from least expensive to most expensive. If you're looking for a light duty home tool kit for occasional use, I really like the Fast Pro. It's going to be hard to beat for a price of around $60, and it has a pretty good tool selection. While a tool bag is less organized than a blow molded case, the benefit of the tool bag is that you can toss in some extra tools to round out the kit. I also really like the Craftsman and the Cobalt kits, but you'll definitely want to supplement those kits with a few extra tools. Having a home tool kit under the kitchen sink is very handy, and today we caused a lot of damage to a lot of kits. All the videos of this channel are viewer suggested, so if you have a video idea, I hope you'll take time to leave a comment. Thanks so much for watching. Please take care and look forward to next time.